me when you're ready.
Ready.
Want to start?
I was going to say 2024! Welcome back to In the House with Beth and Ryan. I'm Beth, and this is Ryan.
This is our first video of 2024. So Happy New Year to everyone. I hope it's started off well and you had a nice holiday season. Today, we're going to quickly talk about what happened in 2023 and then some of the interesting things that happened in December and what we're already starting to see in mid-January. So last year, overall, the market was unremarkable, I guess.
A little bit down.
A little bit down.
Compared to the prior year.
Yeah, still in most metrics, performing better than 2021. So somewhere sort of in the middle. If you were a seller, you probably saw the best results for your home sale in April or May. And if you were a buyer, you probably got the best deal in November and
December.
Probably definitely in December.
And now already in January, we're starting to see that some of the houses that were listed in November and December that didn't sell, in large part because the buyer pool kind of dried up. People decided to wait and pick up their search again in the new year. We're starting to see some of those houses sell through now in January.
Yeah, and December had a very low number of sales. In fact, it was lower than April of COVID. It was a very, very low volume month. Probably because we did see, if you look back, we'll link it in the links below, but last month we talked about listing cancellations and how they really ramped up. And towards the end of the year, it took a real nosedive and people just took their houses off the market. People had sort of given up on their home search and transactions just didn't happen in December. And as Beth said, in January, they're starting to pick up again.
So let's take a look at where we are today. So far, we haven't seen the inventory increase that we were kind of expecting to see in January after we saw a huge number of houses cancel at the end of December. We kind of expected to see a lot of them come back in January, and we have seen some, but a lot of them have not come back yet. So we're still kind of waiting on that inventory. There's a chance that people are just taking a bit of a longer break and they're going to come back towards the end of the month or maybe even into February. What we are seeing though is that buyers are back and they're anxiously awaiting an increase in inventory. And it's possible that when we get our next interest rate announcement on the 24th of January, that will really kind of kickstart things on both ends, that people maybe are waiting to hear that extra vote of confidence that rates are going to hold steady, and maybe even some talk about future decreases in the interest rate.
Yeah, and we usually see a bump up in activity right before Family Day. Family Day is a little bit later this year, but we typically see a bump up during that time for whatever reason. I don't really know, but people tend to get in the mode of buying around there. It's maybe because they anticipate the spring market's coming, but instead, they want to get ahead of that and move their purchase into February so they can get ahead of the rush of people coming into the market. So if you are considering listing in the spring market, it might be worth considering listing in February to get ahead of that rush as well. I mean, houses don't look as nice during that time. There's not as many flowers.
Depending on your house, depending on the features that you want to show off, if you don't have a pool or if you don't have something that's really important outside, it could still be advantageous to list a little bit earlier. We know that there are buyers out there now waiting for this inventory. So depending on your property and your goals, it might be beneficial to list a little bit earlier and get a little bit ahead of the spring market. Yeah,
and if you have photos of your yard, if you have a pool, photos of the pool in the summertime or your yard in the summertime when it looks its best, then those can always be included in the listing to give a potential buyer a visual as to what they're getting in a different month. So worth considering listing in mid to late February if you are planning to go on the market in the spring this year.
We also wanted to share with you an interesting article that we read this morning from the National Post.
Yeah, it was an article that talked about how major Canadian markets did since June of last year, how they performed overall. And a lot of the markets in Ontario are on that list. dropping 9% or so in price since that time. But of the group of the major markets in Ontario, Guelph actually fared the best of them. And then the best performing markets in the country were in the Atlantic. But in terms of Ontario, Guelph did really well. And this is consistent with what we're seeing out there from an agent's perspective. We're still seeing an influx of buyers coming in from the GTA into Guelph, in particular into the East End, in particular into the South End. And those buyers are leaving the GTA and impacting the markets there because they're leaving. But they are propping up the Guelph market. And we still continue to see an unusually large number of GTA agents, presumably representing GTA buyers, coming to Guelph. So
great news for anybody who bought a house recently in Guelph or currently owns a house, and also great news for future buyers. Just to know that we're in a market that continues to be stable despite a lot of volatility in other parts of the country.
Yeah, and even next door. So the biggest drop was Kitchener.
Right.
So with the biggest drop being right next door to us in Kitchener, we fared very well. As always, if you have any questions, stop. As always, if you have any questions on the Guelph real estate market, you can find us online at bethandryan.ca. See you next month.